Emily, you're kind of our special guest speaker, but we do have other candidates. We have Leonica, we have Daniel, and so we wanted to give them an opportunity to say a few words as well. You are originally from the greater Lansing area, and I understand your family still lives there. And you have been in Kentwood a number of years, actually attended your first Kentwood Commission meeting in 2014, and then decided to run yourself, and you actually won your campaign in 2017. That is not necessarily a typical experience for people in their first campaign. You're very, very involved in your community, and right now you're working in patient services at Spectrum Health in a vaccine clinic, helping the community move past the pandemic. And what I really loved too was that in addition to being a passionate supporter for people, you also care deeply about animals. You've been an advocate for animal welfare and you have rescue cats. So that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And as far as your official credentials, I wanted to mention that you graduated from the University of Central Florida, which again is how did you end up here? Well, that'll be interesting. And you've also been to Michigan State, where you got an MS degree and then your Master's of Business at Northwood University. So you are well prepared to be a candidate, and as you've proven, a successful one. And we hope that continues.
So thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I got involved when there started to be crime in my neighborhood, and I went to City Commission to seek to understand what was going on. And I kind of kept showing up, and finally someone said, if you keep showing up here, we're going to give you a job to do. And I thought, that's interesting. I've already got a job, but I can either be a complainer or I can try to make things better. And so I was placed on Parks and Recreation. And then from there, I was placed on the Planning Commission. And I started accumulating a laundry list of things that folks had told me, and the things that we wanted to see in the city, from canvassing and meeting people. And I decided to run for City Commission. And so luckily I was fortunate to, I think I visited over 7,000 constituents in Kentwood, and kind of learning as I went. But the big thing for me was being in our neighborhoods and listening to people and talking with them and just meeting them and letting them get to know me and solving issues along the way. And that's where I really love to spend my time. Like it's great creating a brand and a strategy and all the messaging, as probably Leonica and Miyoshi and Dan know, but then to be out there to talk with people and to really listen and learn. And I met someone the other day, in a very socioeconomically diverse area. And she's like, you're the first person that's ever been through here. You're the first person I've ever met. And she had tons of ties to the Parks and Rec Center. She knew a lot of neighbors. She's just a fantastic person. And so I think as elected officials, my hope would be my elected officials would listen to me. Those are my expectations as far as being a good community leader. And so I try to demonstrate that every day. So we've seen a couple thousand people so far. Our goal is 10,000 by November 2nd, and that can't be done. I can't do that alone. I wish I could, but now that people know I'm running for mayor, they're like, oh, well, that's great. I've never met a candidate for mayor before. So now they're a little bit more chatty versus kind of those passing, quicker conversations. And so to me, trying to get in our neighborhoods, improve our city, the big things for me are being equitable. Our boards and commissions and city employees need to really reflect our community, and we've got work to do. You can ask the candidates here. To me, I've always thought about that as a pressing priority. And so running for office and actually hiring a DEI manager that can create a comprehensive plan to follow up with consultants we have now, that would be my dream. I'd love to have a supplier diversity policy. There's many things we can do. I'd love to create a cultural center as part of our new Parks and Recs building, which we're hopeful to pass a new millage next year, depending on COVID and the economics. So folks have a meeting place, so we can distribute food, so we can have medical seminars, so we can hold weddings. The next 50 years of Kentwood is building those community connections. We've done a great job with bridges and roads and schools. And I think the next 50 years for me is building community. The other thing I'm really passionate about is the environment. Many people want a recycling program, and not only that, but a sustainability plan to move the city forward well into the future. You only have to look behind City Hall, where there's a landfill that will be here hundreds of years, past all of us on this call, to realize we can't keep burying things in the earth and just expect it to go away. Like, that just doesn't happen. I want Leonica's kids to have clean water and not worry about it. Like, to me, that keeps me up at night. I'm a small business supporter because a lot of our immigrants and new Americans don't want to work in factories. They're underemployed because of many variables that we have going on in today's world. And so often they start their own businesses, and we need to support and uplift those businesses because that's how they feed their family and their kids. And I really think going back to the start of having active, accessible leadership where people know us, right? They can turn to us, they can call us, they can email us. We work together in a collaborative manner to solve issues in a timely manner. So to me, I've got a laundry list of things, and you can see everything at emilybridson.com. But those are the really pressing things, the really low hanging fruit that we can start making a difference right away. So I'm running for mayor to move those things forward, and many others, and really kind of champion the working folks that live in our city, all of us really. It's having equal representation and equal say in everything in the solutions that we implement in the city. So yeah, it's very exciting. So I need your help to be successful, whether it's canvassing, whether it's giving resources to our campaign. We've raised about $50,000 of the needed $100,000 so far. And at the end of this month, we'll be halfway through our campaign. And really that money is spent on mailings, copying, postage. There's no secret to it because we want to do several rounds of mailing to be successful. And we're running against an incumbent. So it's going to take a lot of those resources. So but I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you for having me as your guest tonight.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us. It's really impressive platform to run from, Emily. It sounds great. I don't know if anyone else has questions.
Okay, I'm just curious about who you're running against. Has he been in office for a long time? Is he popular? What don't you like about him? What do you want to change that he's doing?
Well, for this is his second term, so he's been in 8 years. So we have 4-year terms. We have no term limits, and before that, he was the city engineer. And for me, it's not about do I like him or not. It's about the policies I'm really interested in seeing implemented in the city. We're very different. We have very different views on social justice and political views. 9 times out of 10, we don't talk about partisan issues. We really talk about the trails, the roads, buildings, hiring, who we hire at the city, and moving those things forward. So we are very different, but for me, it's really staying true to my values and what I've heard from constituents. These aren't my ideas. These are from thousands upon thousands of interactions I've had over the last 6-7 years of what people say is important to them in Kentwood. And if you don't know, Kentwood is 67% Dems. So we are not in the minority. We think we are. We are in the majority, and it's moving our city leadership forward. So it reflects that and includes all of us, right? The goal is to include all of us from different backgrounds and ethnicities and ages and how we identify, all of that. So for me, it's not about him. It's about moving Kentwood forward.
And then are you going to be in a primary in August, or is this just go straight to the election in November?
So it's just the two of us. We don't have a primary, so it'll be November 2nd. So pretty much for me, it's rinse and repeat. I work part-time with Spectrum Health, as we talked about, and then I do canvassing for several hours, 6 days a week, and then I do fundraising from 6:30 to 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then I do emails for a couple hours, then I go to bed. So that won't change for the next 6 months because we need to talk to voters, right, to earn their vote. And we need the resources to do the mailings and be successful and run a really strategic, strong campaign.
Anyone else? I do want to get to the other candidates here, but I wanted to take an extra minute, Emily. I'm not sure that you can be with us, much longer, but I wanted to ask about your own convictions about running. You know, like what has inspired you to step into this? Because it isn't an easy thing to do. And even back in the beginning, when you were considering a run for city commissioner, what have you really considered? And looking at the obstacles, what was your attitude about how to overcome them?
Well, I'm not gonna lie, it's tough. I mean, there's days where my boyfriend has to be like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I don't know," you know. So, but with that being said, we need women, we need people of color, we need progressives. If this was easy, everybody would do it. It's not easy. Let's be clear. And there's many of us, Deb included, that know this, but that doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do, right? I don't want to see Leonica's kids grow up in a Kentwood that we're having the same conversations 20 years from now. I don't want my niece to have the same kind of barriers. She's 17. Her last day is tomorrow from high school. I don't want her to have the same barriers that I do, right? And she sees me role modeling behavior. When I go into our neighborhoods and there's 10 and 12-year-olds and they're riding bikes, I talk to them, they meet me, and their mouths drop open because they know what a mayor is. They may not know what a mayor does, but they know it's important in our city. That's role modeling behavior. And to me, that's changing the outlook on countless lives, which we don't even know. And as women and progressives here tonight, we know how important that is. I've had one or two female bosses in my whole life, right? It's so interesting to me. We kind of have to figure out, and I'm so fortunate because I've had many folks that are in office and women that have run very difficult campaigns step up and really help lift me up. And that's the way we have to do this, right? I just don't want to miss opportunities. And if we're not role modeling that behavior, then who is, right? It's all of us. It's all of us here tonight role modeling that behavior to move us forward, right? We're going to have sleepless nights. I'm going to have to make calls after I get off this, ask her for money from people that don't know me. But here we are because we have to make it happen. I'll do my darndest. We all will on this call to be successful because that's what our city needs. That's what our immigrants and new Americans need, right? We all need to work together and to have a voice. And so, yeah, it's really hard, but it's also positive and it's also empowering. And it's every emotion in between. I mean, it's exhausting, but I wake up again, and I'm like, okay, you know what? This is a really great day because I really get to do what I love. And it's being in our neighborhoods. Like, to me, there's nothing more exciting than that. And so it comes with a whole host of things. And you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt because it's doing the hard work for our city, for all of us that live here, and for all of us in Kent County. This role impacts Kentwood, but it impacts Kent County in a really large way. It's unbelievable. So it's not just the three of us, four of us here tonight. It's all of us in this together. And then when we're successful in Kentwood, then we'll move on to Walker or Wyoming or wherever that is. We're all going to pitch in. And if we do that and we're strategic, we're going to all get ahead. This year is our year. Next year, it's not going to be our year. It's going to be a whole new crop of folks, right, that we are going to be supporting, right? Because that's how we're going to win. That's how we're going to be successful. And that's how we're going to role model the behavior and be the leaders that are in making those decisions that we want to see. So sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, I think that's really pertinent because that is really addressing a key question about people who are not in your district helping you win. And we talk all the time about turning Kent County blue. And if we're serious about that, we really have to figure out what our role is in our part of Kent County in contributing to that blue wave. So I think you're, right on with that whole attitude. Let's move on to the two other candidates who have joined us tonight. And so you're not running as a slate though, right?
I don't know. I think it's yet to be seen. We're going to work together. When they get their lit, I'm going to pass it out when I'm going door to door. We have a bi-weekly meeting. And so we try to work together as much as we can to help each other out. I mean, that's the goal. As many of us as can be successful, that's a great day. I mean, we hope we all are, but as many as we can be, that really is the goal.
Okay, yeah.
So I've got to go though. I have another call. I'll post some stuff I won't. I'll send it on to you, Deb, but thank you so much for the time tonight. I really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for joining us, Emily.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. Well, you guys have heard your prime candidate for mayor here. Were you inspired at all by her words?
I am constantly inspired by Emily.
Yeah.
When I met Emily, she's actually the person who asked me to run and to consider it. And she shared her platform, and there was no way I could say no.
That's great. Well, let's take a minute and kind of hear some of the thoughts that you've had that, Leonica, you're already speaking, so let's stick with you here. What, after Emily asked you to consider running, were you immediate yes, or did you have to like really consider what that would require?
What are you running for, first of all?
Good evening. My name is Leonica Irwin, and I am running for Kentwood City Commissioner at large. I have one opponent who is an incumbent. She was appointed in 2010, I believe, maybe 2012, and she has been unchallenged since that time. However, some of her agenda does not align up with our progressive values. I'd like to see this be a more active position where there's active leadership getting involved and doing some of that community work that Emily talked about to address some of those same issues. So I thought that I would step up, and I want to support Emily in her candidacy, and I know she's going to need even more support when she becomes the mayor. So the more of us who are successful, the better it is for all of us.
Absolutely. Well, okay, so Daniel, why don't you introduce yourself too while we're doing that?
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Daniel, and I am running for city commission as well in the second ward. So the second ward for my campaign. I do have a primary. So of the kind of progressive candidates running, the second ward is the only one with a primary this year. So my election will be August 3rd. We have 3 people running. So myself, incumbent, and then one other challenger. As with all the Kentwood seats, they are nonpartisan, but there's a pretty stark divide between the other 2 candidates and myself as it's kind of the progressive conservative divide. And that's one of the reasons why I initially wanted to run. So my decision to run came a little bit ago, and Emily was also one of the first people that I met along that journey. And she was a great resource and talked through kind of what it would look like. I kind of joke that there was a pre-COVID and a post-COVID reason for why I wanted to run. So if you would have asked me a year ago, I would have had a different answer than I do now. And they're both very valid. They're both part of the kind of the journey and the story for why I want to run for the seat. But as with everybody, a lot has changed over the past year. So my goals, if I do get elected, have changed because of that. I initially got the bug to run after reading a book called Run for Something. And one of the key themes in that book was the idea about how many seats, especially local races, go unopposed every year. And I think the most recent stat I saw for 2020 for Ballotpedia was 64% of local races in Michigan went unopposed. And I think something we have learned over the past year is the importance of a thriving democracy. And I don't think that's a right or left issue. Having choice as it comes to candidates is, I think, important for what we're trying to do on all levels of government. And what initially drove me to run was making sure there was a progressive choice for people in the second ward in Kentwood. At the time, I didn't realize that we were going to get a lot of people to run. So that's great. We're going to have a primary. We're going to do this thing. But really just kind of going out there. And Kentwood, I think like Emily mentioned, is if it's not blue now, it's definitely trending that way. And the city government, I think, needs to reflect that change and kind of what people are looking to get out of their elected officials. So that's something that I hope to bring to the table. I always joke that I am not a natural candidate. I'm a natural campaign manager. That's what I did. I think I worked on my first campaign exactly 20 years ago, organizing yard signs for a court of appeals judge, and fell in love with politics and I've worked on campaigns ever since. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago I really kind of saw myself in the candidate seat. So I love the strategy piece. My biggest weakness is that I will talk to you all day long about nuance and logistics and policy. And Jeff Winston always, always yells at me like, no, don't get into the weeds. We want to talk about, get the little pieces out there. And I need that reminder sometimes because I love talking about that side of things. So really going through and being able to communicate that message, have conversations like this, talk to people. That's what I love about this. And that's what I love about running. Again, post-COVID, my world changed from a year ago when I decided to run. My wife and I are both working from home. She works nights and weekends. I have 2 young kids who are doing school from home. So the amount of time that I have is just different than it was a year ago when I decided to run. So just being strategic and getting the most bang for my buck with outreach and talking to the most people and having as many conversations as I can is kind of my strategy right now. And running against an incumbent and running against another candidate who has much higher name ID than me, it puts me in a position where I really got to get out there and I got to hustle and I got to let people know who I am, what I'm doing, and why they should vote for me. So we're going to hit the ground running, hopefully here beginning in June with walking, getting mailings out, text messages, social, just so people know that there is an election coming up on August 3rd, and why it's important to vote and continue that blue wave we're seeing in Kent County.
Okay, great, Daniel. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would like to come back and have you talk a little bit about what you would like to see change in your ward, and what difference you may have with the incumbent who's currently in place.
Yeah.
But first, let's go back to Leonica, and you've heard a lot from other candidates. Where are you in your own campaign?
I am in the very beginning too. I don't have campaign experience other than at 3 months before the general election, I ran for school board here in Kentwood. I was defeated by about 1,700 votes. It was a large votes because it was a presidential election.
Mhm.
So right now I am strategizing with my campaign volunteers, which is probably about 5 people, and 3 of them live in my house. And
That's good. That is good. You can get right to them.
exactly. We are finalizing our lit. So, and sending that to the printers right now. And we've got the website all set up. We're working on our social media calendar as well and working to map the turf. So we know exactly which candidates or which voters we're going to hit up and focus on, working on some endorsements and really just spending a lot of time listening to people about the issues that are important to them as I encounter them. My platform has a lot of similar issues as Emily's in terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion. That's always been a passion, and I've spent my life working on addressing those issues in child welfare. So I'm a social worker.
So yeah, for both of you now, your past experience and what you'd like to achieve, like Leonica, that's very interesting. You're a social worker and that's part of your motivation. So talk for a moment about how your election, if you win, and let's fingers crossed, how will it change what's going on in Kentwood? What do you want to see happen there that specifically relates to your experience?
I'm a mother and a wife, so I want to continue to have this family-oriented vibe here. So I like to increase opportunities for our neighbors to get together. It's really exciting that the commission's already planning on building a new community center. I love our community center, but I can see where we could do so much more right now to mobilize our neighbors, like she said, for issues like food, issues like clothing. We have a lot of families who are living in multi-family homes. Well, multiple families living in single family homes because there's lack of housing. So I would like to look for solutions to that so that individuals can find housing, affordable housing when they need it so that our city can grow. It's a great place and more people want to live here.
Let's switch to Daniel and we can come back to you.
So quick overview of my background is I've been in the nonprofit world for quite a while now. Previous to that, I'm from Grand Rapids, grew up in the Kent County area, moved to Chicago, went to school there, spent some time living in Chicago, got married, moved out west, lived in Portland, Oregon, so on the West Coast. We came back to the Grand Rapids area, one quick journey out to Pennsylvania, and then came back and kind of found our forever home in Kentwood. So moving around and seeing other communities and other areas that really embraced kind of that neighborhood-centric, community-centric outlook is really what was kind of in my guiding principle for what I'd like to see out of Kentwood. And that involves a lot of different pieces. I kind of break it down into kind of two different areas. One is just general vision, what I want to see out of Kentwood. So you're going to see a theme with, I think, a lot of the candidates who are talking tonight, which is really kind of embracing that equity piece, looking at things through an equity lens, elevating community voices, also investing in the community. So looking at those parks and those green spaces and making sure that there are great places for families to go. I think COVID has really illuminated the importance of our outdoor spaces and the great things that Kentwood has to offer in that area, but also supporting the local economy. You know, putting our dollars back into the community where we live is a key thing. And I think sometimes in Kentwood, we get lost in kind of the big box stores and the larger corporations when really the backbone of what's going on in the Kentwood economy is our local businesses. So really focusing on that area. And then moving down the line, some really key areas that I want to address are working with new Americans to make sure that we have a system in place for folks who are coming to Kentwood, if that's helping to apply for citizenship, just being integrated into the community. So really having a city level system in place to do that, because new Americans is such a huge piece of Kentwood, and really that diversity that makes Kentwood so great. So looking at water, I've worked a lot with the health department, so looking at making sure we have clean water access for everybody in Kentwood, and that's not a Ward 2 issue necessarily. It might actually be more of a Ward 1 issue, but my goals aren't based on just my, being a city commissioner for my ward. So really looking at the lead piece. Broadband internet, we learned over the past year how important having broadband internet is. So bringing that to the community and looking at maybe some local companies that could help us with that. And then the current system that I'm working in is childcare. So I currently work with childcare providers on developing a system for in-home providers to thrive. And we have again seen over the past year, we've known for a long time, but over the past year, it's really shown how important the childcare industry is to success on so many different levels in our community. So looking at ways that we can elevate the childcare profession. And I'm a project manager by nature. That's what I do. And I think that's what I bring and what I will bring to the city commission. And one of the big projects we're going to have to work on right now is the American Recovery Plan that's coming down the line here. And there are dollars that are being designated specifically for counties and cities. And I think Kentwood's going to get about $7 million of recovery funds over the next few months here. And we need to be strategic with those dollars. I've worked on a $500,000 grant through the CARES Act. So distributing resources this past fall specific to the CARES Act. So I have that experience about what it takes to really be successful with those dollars. And this is a once in a lifetime investment, infusion of cash that we're getting into the city. And I don't want to see that be put somewhere that's not really taking into account, what the community members of Kentwood need and what we want to get out of that funding. So being strategic with that piece of it is really something, if I am fortunate enough to get elected, I want to hit the ground running with really focusing on that.
Okay. All right, very cool. Anyone have any other questions that you'd like to ask these two fine candidates?
Do you guys, I'm curious, do you guys have like community gardens or like farmers market, anything like that in Kentwood? Because that's like one really good way to make sure that the money are spent and then it's for the local farmers and community that can come together and do those kind of things, or even like compost together, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that.
We do have farmers market,
Right.
and I have seen in some of the communities may have a community garden, but I can't really tell if it's really a community garden or if it's individuals work. So I would love to invest in our community in that aspect. Food security is really an issue here, and it's definitely something that we can do, especially with that CARES Act. Lots of different ways that we can elevate our community, but we really need to make sure that we understand the community's needs too.
Yeah. One of my my brother-in-law, he works for big corporate on like this big, fast food chain. And then he's saying that what they see during COVID is this huge change of behaviors. Normally you can kind of predict that they'll have like a lunch rush and a dinner rush. Now their best time of selling is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. That is their like golden hours that they're making a lot of, like, way more money than normally what they would see, which like people are like changing the behavior of consuming food. And then he also says like that he also been in charge of like supermarkets before, and he sees like people with low incomes, they tend to buy really expensive junk food in the beginning of the month, and then at the end of the month you see that really bad junk food that they're like the choices that they're making, and that needs, like, I guess you have to start early to educate the kids to like eat healthy and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's such an important topic.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, a few years back, I was a 3-year board member at Garfield Park Neighborhoods Association and 49507 over in Grand Rapids, and it was one of my first kind of neighborhood development roles. And one of the big things that we worked on during my board term was working with local corner markets and things like that, and even getting produce spots put into the corner stores. So having a refrigerator or a freezer, available for some of those healthier foods. And just really being intentional about having those opportunities. We also developed a community garden in the neighborhood, and it ticks so many boxes. It helps provide healthy foods, but it's also community building. So it's a place for people in the community. And we picked a spot that was one that you wouldn't have thought to put a community garden, but it brought people to that area and it brought people together. And those are the types of things that I firmly believe that. And in general, people want to see their government make the right investments, right? I don't think people are afraid of spending money. They're afraid of their money not being spent well. So if we can show that we're making good investments as a city, I think that's what people want. Again, getting back to the recovery funds that are coming through, if we can use this this once in a lifetime amount of infusion of cash to make some of those things, improve some of these things that they work, and the benefits of them, I think we can make long-term change with that.
I love to see the city get involved in home ownership classes, credit repair, and budgeting. Those are some issues that have definitely come up, and I used to do some volunteer work at Garfield Park too for their football team. So you got me really excited. Yeah.
Yes.
All of my sons played at Garfield Park. And but that type of community empowerment, because in my research before I decided to run, I realized that women are less likely to own homes here in Kentwood than men. And that was really a fascinating statistic that I couldn't even imagine. We know that certain populations are more likely to live in poverty and have struggled with literacy issues. So if we could even get a literacy council in Kentwood and do more to help, especially our our neighbors who are learning English as a second language and provide more support in classes in that aspect, I think Kentwood would just soar. It's my goal for Kentwood to have the title of All American City, because we're so diverse already and naturally, that if we could just lift that up nationwide, I think we can set a national standard of community living.
Yeah.
We want to let you know what we can do to help you too. So Joan and Palon, I think you've been really involved in thinking about how to support these candidates as we move forward. Do you want to take a moment and just kind of share some of the thoughts that we've developed here?
Yeah, so me and we've organized like postcard writing before for Georgia. We did, I think, 2,500 to 3,000 postcards. And so those are the things that because like our location is in Northeast Kentwood, Rockford area. So it's a little bit harder to make people go all the way down there to help you knock on doors. But
Right.
things like putting literature together, writing postcards, phone banking, those kind of things our volunteers can do, even though we don't live in Kentwood. So think along those lines as to like what you guys need help for. Even, like I'm sure if we ask them, can you help just do a lid drop or something like that. We're thinking about doing like a day of action or something like that. So like a group of us will go out together to Kentwood and knock on doors, drop literatures. In the past, we've also included like literatures for different candidates like school board and along with candidates, and then we just did lid drop, and we did a good amount. I think Joan probably knows better how much we actually did for those lid drops.
We did a lot through Kent County Dems, a lot, but we were doing the packets together, so it was about 6 or 7 different pieces of literature that we were rubber banding together, and we did a slate of who the Kent County Dems endorsed. So that might be a little bit different than doing, your individual ones, or if you decide to do to join together, and then we can assemble the lit. But we didn't do, and we would maybe even have a harder time actually canvassing for you because we wouldn't be as familiar with, what to say. But I think for just a lit drop, we would be very, just putting the literature on the doors, willing, unless you wanted to give us, of course, maybe if you gave us some talking points. But some people might not feel terribly comfortable since they don't know you as well as we did some of the candidates that we canvassed for, although with COVID, we didn't do too much talking at that time.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
we also, I think Anne did a lot of phone banking. Like how many, like couple thousands probably? I don't know. You did a lot.
Did about 1,500.
Yeah, she's our queen of phone banking.
Sure.
So, like things like that, or texting, that would be things that we can probably help you guys with. Maybe drop yard signs, perhaps, those kind of things that, we can probably tell our volunteers to pick up a stack of yard sign, give them a list of address, and they can do it instead of you spending your valuable time on doing these kind of things. Because for candidates, when you go out and canvass, you flip 1 out of 3, voters. As a volunteer, when we go out, we flip 1 out of 9. So your time is so valuable on that door-to-door personal interaction. Anything that we can take, off your plate and help you do, just let us know, and we'll try to do it.
We do have a lot of volunteers out there. They just didn't all get on tonight, but we have had a very good response, especially in this off-year election. In a way, you're fortunate that it is, because we don't have anybody else to work for, but we have the energy and the desire to get as many Democrats or like-minded people elected. So,
Michael, did you have some comments you want?
Sure. I got to unmute me. I like the opportunity to use the resources that we used last year in Kentwood. I got help from the mission downtown, the Guiding Light mission, and there are willing workers to come out and help campaign and do lit drops in Kentwood. So I'll leave my email and I can round up the troops. I mean, we did the same thing in getting out the vote drive as a member of the Black Caucus. We motivated those guys to get out because we were on a mission. And if you need votes, if you need lit drops, we can do it. So yes, I'll be available to help out the campaign in Kentwood. As VP of the Kent Dems here in Grand Rapids and Kent County, I'll do everything I can to just make it happen. So yes, you have a good resources. They're willing to come out because basically they want activities. And I've gotten a lot of good response from the last elections that we held. So yes, use me. I'm there and available.
That's great, Michael. Thank you so much. So it's almost 8 o'clock. We want to sort of wrap up here with, as soon as you guys get the materials that you want us to work with, we're going to need a system for getting that stuff to our volunteers, especially when we have this day of action or this event at the brewery. So what's in place right now, Joan? Right now you're working with Emily to get her materials. Do you think this is something, can we centralize it at all?
I would be more than happy to be the distribution center as far as, if you do postcards, to get them out and collect them from you. I think one of your hardest things with a postcard campaign is getting the addresses. And so you might need to tap into Emily's expertise on how she's planning on getting a list of addresses. We're willing to write them and we're willing to address them too, but I just want to be certain that when I ask volunteers to write a bunch of postcards, that they will eventually go out, that we'll eventually have addresses for them. I would hate to have, hundreds of them written and then, oh, well, we don't know where we're going to send them, so we would definitely want that piece in place as far as the postcard. As far as lit assembly, that's real easy to do for us also. I would just collect it all and then distribute it to whoever is willing to put it together.
So I don't know how much centralizing you're doing with Emily, but it seems like if she's going to be giving us materials, it's certainly easy if you can, like piggyback on that.
Yeah.
So we don't have all these separate things going on, especially as far away as we are from you.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I work on downtown. I work on the medical mile. So if you want to drop off anything, for me, just send me an email. I can just come downstairs to, pick it up at the parking lot or something like that. And now, because I come back here every night. So if that makes it easier for you, not to come all the way up to Rockford, I can easily do that during the weekdays. I guess the other thing is the address. So one way that to do it is to print out all the address on the stickers, and then you can stick them. We can stick them on the postcards for you, and then write the opposite. Write the other side. Or if you want us to write it first and then bring it back to you, and you put the sticker on, and then send it out the time that you want them to be sent out. Because strategic wise is it doesn't sometimes it makes sense to send out the postcard later. I don't know. So depend on your campaign and what your decision is on that and what your strategy is on that. So just let us know what we can do to make it easier for you. You do want the message to be nice and short, have a couple of bullet points. I think Joan has done a couple of those, and she can help you message even how to write those postcards. Yeah, so you let us know if you need anything, and we'll try to help out.
No, that's great. Yeah, we really appreciate all of the support and help.
You guys are amazing.
Yeah.
Way to get a candidate fired up.
I'm so
Yeah.
glad to hear you say that. And again, this is going to be recorded and will be sent out to our mailing list, which has got hundreds of names on it. And so it will really be, I think, a very good, something you may even want to use for your own websites or something to basically give people a very good picture of who you are, because you speak very well. Your campaigns sound great. And we just wish the very, very best for all of you and really want to do what we can to get you in there. And as we said at the beginning, when we say we want to turn Kent County blue, the way that we do that is to make sure that you get elected. And we keep turning and turning and turning these commissions around until, in fact, we have a progressive county. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us tonight. Does anyone
Thank you.
else have any last minute questions or comments?
I
Well, then-
just want to
sorry.
say how exciting everything that you said sounds. And I really want you to do all those things in Kentwood so that we can say, well, if Kentwood couldn't do it, then why can't we in the rest of our communities? So yes, thank you more, please.
Definitely.
Absolutely. We are united.
Yes.
Kent County.
That's beautiful. Okay, well, and thanks the others. I know we'll be in conversation as we get these systems worked out. So expect to hear from us again.
All right. Looking forward to it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.